Thank you for joining us. This is a joint session being run by Gladstone and the Open Data Institute. We've been working together on the Open Active initiative, moving the kind of data sharing stuff forwards. Some of you that have joined us have already got the Open Active web services installed on your systems. Some of you are here out of interest, so it's really great to have everybody here. The purpose of the session, there's kind of two sections to it. So there's an insight into what the Open Active initiative is, and also then a demonstration of the Open Active data manager, how that works, particularly for those that have already got it, but as a useful bit of information for those that are considering. We've got both Nick and Tara from the Open Data Institute with us, and they're really going to be leading the session. I'm here from a Gladstone point to help with any questions and facilitate anything. Anything sort of burning and pressing so far? No? Okay, Nick, are you able to shift through the slides? So the agenda, we've got about an hour, I think. So we'll go through the sort of introducing Open Active and some Q&As there. Tara's then going to talk to us about using open data to market your products. Then Nick, I think, is taking over the Open Active Data Manager part, talking through some basic information activities. There's a section on interacting with the data users, so people like Change for Life. And then we've got a Q&A session at the very end. Okay, so moving through.
Yep, sure. So we're going to be using Slido for people to ask questions throughout this webinar. So if anyone has any questions as we go on, there's quite a lot of people on the call. To be able to manage the questions, if everyone could open up a new window and put in slido.com, which is up on the screen, and it will have an entry code to put in, which will be Open Active. And once you're on that, you'll see that you're able to ask questions. We'll also be using Slido to run a couple of polls in a couple of minutes as well, just to test that it's all working. So if we give everyone sort of 10 seconds just to, if you open up slido.com in a new window and use Open Active to sign into this particular one. And then, Nick, do you want to test out the polls?
Sure. So first poll. This is just a general question about open data. I don't know how much you guys have had exposure to open data in the past, but just this is really just a test that you guys are able to log into slido.com and type in Open Active and actually hit those polls in there. So you can see some people have already started to do that. If you're all able to do that, just that really helps us to check that everyone is actually able to log in and be part of this.
Okay.
Okay.
Shall I reveal the results?
Go for it.
And the correct answer is 130 million per year.
Well done, guys. Should we do one more just to make sure everyone's on the ball with it? So you'll now see on Slido that a new poll's come up. So if you can just go ahead and do one more vote real quick. Yeah, great. 4 people already. You'll find it's very fast actually once we get going with this. And it also means that you can use that exact same window to ask questions during, and we'll answer them at the end. Great, well done, guys. So the question is, what percentage of state-funded primary schools are engaged in Change for Life? That's the question, and Change for Life is what we'll be talking about in a minute. One of the opportunities here to get your data into. What percentage of state-funded primary schools are engaged in Change for Life? Okay, go for it. The answer is?
Well, this is the voting that we've had. You can see 3 people have said 50%, 10 have said 78%, 4 have said 92%, 3 98%, and 2 100%. That's obviously changing a little bit as more people vote. The result is 98% of state-funded primary schools are engaged in Change for Life.
Super. Okay, great. So now we've got a hang of that. Pass over to Tara. Will just give us a quick explanation of Open Active.
So for anyone who is not aware of Open Active, we're conscious that a number of people who've joined this call have not yet engaged with what we're doing. So I just wanted to give you a quick summary. Open Active is a community-led initiative, which is funded by Sport England and stewarded by the Open Data Institute, where Nick and I work. So we're not out to make money for ourselves or for the initiative, and the direction of the initiative is steered by the needs of the sector. And as you can see from this slide, it was set up to use data to help people get active. Pretty simple question or statement here. We all know that behavior change is hard, especially in the physical activity sector. Keeping someone physically active is much easier than getting someone who's inactive to start taking part. And I'm sure you're all aware that there are multiple factors at play in someone's decision to take part in a physical activity, and then further factors that affect whether they actually do what they plan to. So, for example, with capability, is the individual physically and mentally capable of doing the activity? Do they feel physically able to carry it out? Do they have the headspace to plan for being more physically active, particularly starting something new? Are they sufficiently confident in their ability, or do they worry about being too unfit, too slow, unskilled, etc.? And then in terms of opportunities, are there sufficient opportunities for the behavior to occur, including prompts and support and social influences? Are there suitable facilities close to home for someone to access? Are they aware of those facilities? Is it normal for people like me to play this sport? And then in terms of motivations, does this person have sufficiently strong motivations? Someone has to be motivated to do sport or activity behavior more so over another behavior or doing nothing at all. There are plenty of other opportunities in the leisure sector to tempt an individual into using their time to do something other than physical exercise. So our focus is on affecting the opportunities and motivation boxes on this screen that affect this behavior, making it easier for individuals to find opportunities for them to take part in, and making it quick and easy and enjoyable for them to search for something that suits them, so that the process of finding an opportunity doesn't detract from the motivation that they found. If you've ever moved to a new area and searched for what opportunities are available nearby for you to do some sort of physical activity, you'll know it's not the easiest of places. You can spend hours searching through different websites, which might give you different bits of information, and some might require you to call up to find specific information you need to make a decision. And for someone who isn't used to physical activity, they could, easily tempted to get back on the sofa and be demotivated by this process. Now, as part of the Open Active initiative, we could have just built a big activity finder and asked all the activity providers to put their sessions in there for people to find. But we recognize that people are different, and they have different wants and needs when it comes to finding and taking part in a physical activity. For example, an activity that's suitable and enticing for a child is probably not going to have the same appeal to their grandma. Likewise, a new mum who's looking to get back into physical activity and needs to find activities that are child-friendly or have creche facilities isn't going to be looking for the same sorts of activities or want the same sorts of filters as someone in a wheelchair who needs to know how accessible the facilities and classes are at their local leisure centre. And you can see, there are many different examples out there. So when we're looking at the sector, we see on the left-hand side of here, activity providers who are providing opportunities. So this includes leisure centres, national governing bodies, outdoor providers, basically anyone who delivers physical activity, like majority of the people on this call. They and you want to attract new customers and increase participation. On the motivating side, we have what we call data users. So they offer a range of different use cases and cater to different audience types, not a one-size-fits-all solution. So the work that we've been doing on Open Active is engaging both sides of this ecosystem and helping to create the infrastructure that allows opportunity data to flow from one side to the other. And to be clear, the data we're talking about here is just the opportunities to take part. The sessions timetable that you probably already publish on your websites with how many slots are still available, facilities an individual or group can book out for a set amount of time. We're not talking about personal data here at all. So what we've done with community input is build open opportunity data standards guidelines so that each of these activity providers can open up their opportunity data feeds, and these can be fed into the use cases on the right. With open data feeds, you don't need to enter your sessions in multiple different places in order for them to feed into something like Change for Life's activity finder or an app like iPrescribe. You continue to enter your sessions in once into your Gladstone system, and these can be automatically pulled into these other places. If you need to change the time of a session or cancel it, this will be updated automatically across the board. And because these open feeds have been built by Gladstone against open active standards, this makes it easy for each of the motivating data users to put in lots of different ones as they're all in the same format. And then just like that, the reach your sessions have can be multiplied by the audience sizes of each of these data users, going into the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. For the end user, this means that they can use the activity finder or apps that work best for what they need to find the opportunities that they want to take part in. And to remind us why this work is needed, we've got a fun statistic here. We all know it's easier to order a takeaway than it is to cook a fresh meal. And with apps like Deliveroo and Uber Eats, we can find almost any cuisine we want and have it delivered to wherever we are in a matter of minutes. Or if you're feeling especially organized, you can time it to arrive 5 minutes after you walk in the door from work. And going back to one of the polls that we did earlier, open data, which is what we're promoting for the physical activity sector, was calculated to have created £130 million in benefits and savings per year for Transport for London. If you've used Citymapper or any of the other travel apps out there, you'll know how much easier they make your life in getting from A to B. So if we take this and imagine what this could create for our sector in terms of revenue for you, innovation for data users, and an increase in participation for those who struggle to become physically active. And our ultimate goal, however, is not just to make it as easy to book a squash court as it is to book a takeaway or a hotel room. We see the future of open active as increasing active transport, making it easy for health professionals to refer patients for physical activity as treatment, increasing physical opportunities for those with accessibility requirements, and more. And to give you an idea of what's available at the moment, we mentioned Change for Life earlier. This is the Change for Life activity finder, which is run by Public Health England. So they are currently pulling in all of the open opportunities which are suitable for children aged 5 to 11 and doing a big launch for this finder in July. Change for Life is a trusted and recognized brand with 97% of mothers with children aged 5 to 11 aware of it. Their website has had more than 4 million families register for support, and they've one of the most used health apps in the country with more than 5 million downloads. And there are many other opportunities available, ranging from other national campaigns such as This Girl Can, to smaller apps doing something different with the opportunity such as iPrescribe. So another example, just to show you what's available, we've got an activity finder that was built by Badminton England, which is pulling in facility opportunities to play badminton. And we've also got Parasport, who are pulling in open opportunities as well. So they're currently pulling in about 10% of the opportunities available, looking at activities and opportunities that are suitable for people with accessibility requirements. So what we also want to do is ensure that the data that is opened up is of good enough quality that it can be used by organizations such as Parasport to benefit their end users. And just to reiterate, to confirm what data we're talking about again, we mean things like events, sessions, and facilities, publishing properties like the times, prices, locations, and availability. And here's just a snapshot from our website. So this is a directory of where your feeds will be able to be seen once they're opened up, along with existing organizations who have already opened up their opportunity data. We don't own these feeds. This is just a directory for people to be able to find them. And you can see you've got organizations like Everyone Active, Fusion, and One Life here. So going on to questions, I can see we've got a couple of questions on here at the moment. So first question, are we being recorded today for future use? The answer is yes, this presentation is currently being recorded. And a question for Lynn. Steve Clark has asked to say that our version of +2 is not the latest. Do we need to be running 360 to enable Open Active?
Hi. Okay, so 360 isn't relevant to the ability to be able to run it. You do need to be on either the GDPR version of +2 or the Threadneedle version of +2 to be able to run it. We can have a chat afterwards and I can have a look and see what version you are on.
Thanks, Lynn. Has anyone else got any questions? If they do, please put them on Slido. Oh, I've got one more that's coming now. So does data from Learn2/courses get published?
No, not at present. It's not plugged into Cap2. So that's something that's, if that's of interest, then definitely do ask Gladstone about that.
Any other questions before we move on? Just to reiterate, if you do want to ask questions, you need to go to slido.com, which is slido.com. And if you type in Open Active, it will take you to this page where you can ask questions. But I think we can probably move on now.
Okay, so the next bit to talk about is the Open Active Data Manager, and just this is about really the marketing side of this. Before we get into the technical side of what it would mean to actually update your information, and where to do that within the Gladstone system, this is more to give you a bit of an idea about why you want to do that, and what the opportunity here really is. So you've already seen a couple of examples where the data ends up. So Change for Life Balance in England. And I think you'll probably, well, actually, I'll go back to those slides. In those examples, you'll probably have noticed that there's quite a lot of content in some of those, and in others, it's a little bit more sparse, and they've just got the headlines, and that's because there's a more info page behind it. And so what we're going to dig into now for a few minutes is just give you a sense of what kind of data it is that we're talking about being published, and the benefit for you in actually adding to the detail in that data. So obviously, the activities when you publish them will be up against a lot of other activities, and they'll be displayed alongside all the opportunities that are in the area. And this is really an opportunity for marketing. This is an opportunity for you to differentiate your product, to make it really clear why someone should want to go and participate in your particular opportunity. And if you think about also people who are maybe inactive, and a lot of these are targeting people who are currently inactive, who are not maybe thinking about going to your centers already. Actually describing that activity and having a photo that's realistic, that shows exactly what the experience is going to be like, is really going to help them making their decision about whether to actually go and attend or just stay on the sofa. So I'm just going to go through a few examples of what this looks like. Specifically, what you can publish from OWS, Open Active Web Services, which is the Gladstone product that allows you to make your data openly available and feature in all of these services, is sessions and facilities. To answer the question from before, we don't include courses yet in this. That's a feature that I think is to come. But that's at the moment it's just the sessions and facilities. And what we mean by that is really the activities that you've configured within +2, which allow you to, which are already featured in Connect, in Gladstone Connect, which someone can already book onto, and anything that you tick web bookable against, anything that's got that web bookable checkbox that comes through to Connect will come through to the open data. So it's the same setting. And the data that comes through includes the time, the price, the location, the availability. All of that comes through by default. So you don't need to put that in twice. That's going to be live straight out of your Gladstone system and published openly. Where you can work to differentiate your activities and make them really clear for consumers to decide to take part in is really with the images and some of the other information that we'll come on to talk about, the description, difficulty level, things like that. And that just makes the data a lot more useful for the end users that are looking at this and deciding whether they want to get active today or not. So to give you an example in Change for Life, you can see that at the headline level, Pebbles right now, as an example here, you just get a title. So there's something about making your title quite compelling and clear. Pebbles isn't necessarily 100% clear what that activity is. There's a picture of someone climbing to the left-hand side, which kind of indicates it's related to climbing. So you can see that actually having a title of your activity, and just to note, these titles don't have to be the same titles that you're using in Connect. You can set the titles separately so that what goes into the open data makes sense in the context of open data. Because it might make sense to have Pebbles just in the context of your Connect portal, because maybe your members already know about that. But for people that are completely new to your site, to your center, it might be more useful to have a bit more detail in there. So you can see that there's benefit in having a good solid title. It makes it clear what the opportunity is. And then on top of that, having a description and image. So you can see this is actually an example from Everyone Active's current open data. They're not currently using images, and they have quite short descriptions, which is a really great start. This just shows you that as an opportunity here, obviously, if you were looking at whether to get involved in this opportunity or not, there is quite a lot of information, but potentially there could be a benefit in adding some more detail there about exactly what's involved in that course and what the expectations are, and maybe even photos of people taking part to make it really clear what it looks like to be part of that. Moving away from the examples we showed, just giving you a few other examples of where this data ends up on the web. This is from Class Finder, which is Exercise Move Dance Partnership's soon to launch activity finder powered by open data. So all the data will go into Class Finder. This ranked quite highly in Google for certain searches. And the idea is to help people to get into group exercise and give them an idea about what's around them and the choices that they've got there. And then again, you can see that the description that you'll be able to enter comes through. And this is a really short description, but again, you could put a lot more detail in there. Also things like gender restriction, whether they take cash or card, and the age that it's suitable for. This is a really good example because actually if you had 16 and upwards, if you just put 16 in as a minimum age, that would have come up as a minimum age, but because you put 99, it actually shows that in here. So sometimes there's benefit in just making sure that you read through where you put the data, and I'll show you that in a minute, and making sure you put in the right information, but not unnecessary information. So you could have just left the 99 out and it would have just said 16 and over, just make it slightly better for the user. Also things like, their parking or changing facilities, you can see. In addition to beginner, intermediate, and advanced, so you can specify whether the activity, who it's suitable for, and people can filter on that when they're searching for an activity. Some more examples, you can see that in this particular experience, lockers and showers come through as little icons. This is one Rebel. There's a description here. The pin on the map, which you can set, and we'll show you where to put the pin. That comes up so they can actually see where your site is and how to get to it. Information about the site as well, the address, phone number, social media links. You can put all of these in, and we'll show you where to put those. But again, it's useful to have that just so that makes that fuller and they can click through and find out more about those things. And finally, this is really great if you can include additional information as to what they should bring with them. So this is the example here where you've got what to bring, workout kit and A-game. But you could actually be a lot more descriptive to help people who are new and maybe haven't got active in the way that your activity requires before to decide what they need to bring with them. And so putting that information in and additional information is really great. And we'll show you how to do that too. So there's another example, Pilates, and you can see a good description here. They've got showers and lockers, and they've got a description about the actual site as well, Fight City Gym. And we'll show you where to put that description, as well as a full address. If you can include your logo, we'll show you where to put that. That helps make sure your brand's differentiated and clear. So you can actually include that alongside the listings, as you can see better have done here. And you can also include a generic image about the activity. And this is a really good example, because you can see here that although that's clearly a badminton activity, it might be more compelling for someone that's new to the sport if you actually saw people playing badminton in there, real people, rather than just a picture of a badminton racket. So just reinforcing that, having real people in these photos, it does make all the difference. If you've got those photos available to add to the different activities, that would definitely be recommended. And this is an example of real people, although the quality of the image isn't so good in this case. It does give you more of a sense of exactly what's going on in that particular facility. And you can see that some of the details that have come through as well. Final couple of examples now. You can see the description and again the image coming through. Some of these apps actually use images quite heavily because that makes it much more visually appealing for the user. And so in cases like this, if you didn't have an image, you can see that a lot of these activities might look quite similar if someone was scrolling through. So just reinforcing the value of including an image if you can. So that's all from the information about marketing and the value of having good, rich data and content in there. Just before we move on, does anyone have any questions? Do you want to just stick those in Slido and we can tackle them there? And then I'll go on and just show you how to actually make this data available within the Gladstone product.
So just a reminder for anyone who wasn't able to join at the start of the call, if you want to ask any questions, go to slido.com, that's SLIDO.com. And if you put in Open Active as the code, that will allow you to ask questions. So we've got one question here from Tom, who asks, how easily can they manage the data that is and that is not being shared?
So if you pick web bookable, that's the way that you get the data to be shared in the open. And we'd recommend just putting all of it on there because it's a bit like timetable data, really. You're not allowing people to book directly. They have to still go through to your site to book. And so there shouldn't really be any disadvantage in making everything that's already available in Gladstone Connect available to all those different apps and services.
We've had another question come in from Martin, who asks, I noticed Everyone Active promoting football courses. Given Learn2 doesn't pull through, is this just a generic piece of info?
So that's a good point. I don't think Everyone Active uses Learn2. I can
jump in there. I think that what it's probably pulling, because you can put courses into +2, so I don't know the data particularly well, but I suspect that that's what it's pulling from.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another question from Stavrula. Is it possible not to have all activities and classes which are included into our website through Connect into Open Active?
So at the moment, the way it works is everything that's in Connect goes through to Open Active. We'd be really interested if you've got any a particular use case where you want to do something slightly different to that, what that would be. Mainly because we found that so far, it's usually when we talk it through, it turns out that actually most of the time you do want the same information in both, just for consistency, and because it's usually the same information that you publish in your timetables, maybe on your website, maybe in PDFs or printed flyers that you circulate. So, but please do engage with Lynn and give us some feedback on that if that's something that you're interested in.
And if it's an example of, different opportunities for members and versus non-members, showing publicly what is available for members is actually an incentive for you, for customers to actually sign up to become a member as well as just attend that one-off class. And we have another question from Matt, who asks, do we have to put the custom information in on a per class basis, or are there templates or groupings we can apply?
Matt, you've almost read the next part of the presentation. There are indeed templates. You don't have to do it for every class, thankfully, because that would be a long and arduous process. So we'll definitely go through that shortly.
And another question from John has said, well, we have version 10.07.054 of +2. Is this compatible with OWS?
Yes, John, you're good to go.
Good. And Tom has asked, would the apps then link directly to Connect? If we don't have Join at home, how can the booking be enabled without that software?
So booking is a separate thing. What the apps are doing is they're linking through to your homepage, and we'll show you in the next section where exactly to put that information. And so you're choosing where to send them on a site-by-site basis at the moment. There is a plan to do an integrated booking that's coming. That's not part of this yet. So at the moment, this is really about signposting to make it really easy for people to see what's available. And hopefully, if they come through to your web page that you specify, that site page, they can then figure out how to attend from there.
So just a clarification question from Stavrula. Do they need Join at home as well for this stage?
No, it's very similar to what Nick's just said about the previous one. So Join at Home is the online membership joining. So you don't necessarily need to have that to be able to use the Open Active stuff.
Great. Okay, that is all of the questions we have for now. Please, if anyone has any more questions as we go through, please do keep adding them here, and we will allow time for questions throughout the rest of the presentation for the next 22 minutes or so.
22 minutes. So we're going to just fly through the actual configuration here. What you'll see, so I'm just going to switch my screen, hopefully seamlessly, so you can jump in on this. This is Open Active Web Services, and as you can see, we're using sales360.gladstonesoftware.co.uk. This is the sales Gladstone sales environment. So wherever your Connect is installed, you've probably got /Connect or something similar. If you've installed OWS, you will have /OpenActive, which will be this page. If that makes sense. That's how you can how people can access your data. So the way it works is that when you've opened up your data, you're featured on a status page like this, and this is on the Open Active website. So people can jump into these pages and actually use them to find your data. So they can click on, the example, Fusion here. They can click through, and inside there, they can find the actual page that describes the data that is available from Fusion. You can see that at the top there, it's got /OpenActive, and it will hopefully shortly load. And you can see that's Fusion's logo, and you've got a background image, and all the templates are quite similar, but you can brand them specifically for your organization. So taking us back to the sales environment, when someone's found your data, then they'll come through a bit like this, and they'll find your information. They can literally click on one of these buttons down here, and you'll have one of these yourselves. And if they click on, for example, session series, that is the data that they can then use and pull into their app. Hopefully that's really clear. There's no, don't need to give you a password or anything like that. It's open for anyone to access, use, and share. Change for Life or anyone else can go and take that information. It's publicly available. There's no personal data in there. And they can just pull it into their app and service. And this means by just turning on OWS, you instantly get access to all of these various apps and services, be it PowerSport or others. And it's really on the individual apps and websites to decide whether to use your information or not, based on the quality of it. And so obviously putting as much information as possible increases the chances it gets used. Booking, which is a separate thing, is a very different situation. When we get to booking, which is not this phase of work and it's not part of OWS, that's a decision you make and a control that you have on a partner by partner basis. But at the moment, this is just signposting, and things like Change for Life, Badminton England, etc., can just pick that information up and use it as they want. So hopefully that's clear. You go from the status page through to the actual page, and also to give you an idea of where else this information goes. People who are building apps can use Google's dataset search to find relevant information. If I type in Fusion in this box here, you'll see, well, actually it's in the autocomplete on Google. It's quite good. Top of the list, Fusion Lifestyle, is their open data, and you can pull through that data as an app developer into your app. So Google's indexing this, and there'll be lots of other places that are kind of indexing this information so that people can find it really easily. So that's what this is for. Really important page, because it means that Google and other people can find that information and make it available so that people can click on it and pull it through to the app. It's called a dataset site. So that's the dataset site. And now we're going to spend the rest of the time just talking through the data manager. So you'll have Open Active, the same place as where Connect is. That's the dataset. That's publicly accessible. When OWS is installed, that gets registered in all the directories. If you add Manager to the end, you end up on this page, which is the Open Active Manager. So this is only for you to log in. This is a Gladstone product where you can actually add that information we've talked about and make those really compelling descriptions available. So I'm just going to quickly whiz you through Open Active Manager now. So you can see here, this is the organization page of Open Active Manager where you can set all the information about your organization. We talked about Instagram, Twitter, that's where you set it in here. You can upload a logo here. So all I have to do is click upload here, and I can just upload a logo, for example, the Gladstone logo, and that's done. And that will just upload that. I can delete it if I don't want it anymore. And so that's really easy to do. I can also, if you really want to turn it off for any reason, just to put your mind at ease, if you're thinking, oh my goodness, this is a lot of information. What if someone misuses it? What happens if there's a lot of risks? There aren't any real big risks with open data. We can go into that in more detail, but as the Open Data Institute, in the history of all data that's been opened across transport, agriculture and other sectors we've worked in, there's never been anything that's really gone wrong with this. Sometimes people have a fear that there might be an issue what if someone gets hold of it. You have an ultimate control here. You have a kill switch. If you just press this button and click save, that immediately disables your open data, so it turns it off straight away. So if there's ever an issue with anything, that's the way you stop it from open. You have complete control to do that at any time. But like we've said, in the 5 years we've been running, and certainly across all the open data projects that we've been part of, we've never had anyone have any issues across all the sectors we're part of and working with. So we would be very, very surprised if sport and physical activity compared with drug trials and other things we're working with were the place where we found those issues or any issues. So that's the page about your organization. You can fill in all this information. You can see just against each one of these, when I'm clicking on them, you can see these little tooltips that come up on the left-hand side and at the top. That's just a little explainer to just explain what kind of information to put in that box. Every box and the whole of this interface has one of these. Really good to read those before you type, especially in the free text boxes, because it gives you a bit of a hint as to what to type. Vision, history, mission, what's relevant here. You might have some of this content already to just copy and paste in, so it might be quick to do. So that's the organization page. Next, the places page. So every site that you have will be listed automatically here, pulled through from +2. And if you click on one of these, you can actually then go in and edit the individual fields of information. So just to show you what it looks like, if I've just gone in straight away from scratch with having entered nothing, I'll have something a little bit like this, where it's all blank and I need to fill out all the information here, decide on if they're changing facilities, lockers, put a description in, etc. And so what you can do, and I'm just going to copy this one over to give you an example of what's possible and to save time. If you click on one of these, you put in your information, your full address. You'll notice sometimes that the name is shortened because it's been, you'll be aware there's a field limitation in +2, the number of characters you can use for a site name. So we recommend if you've got something like CC instead of county council or city council, you just expand that out into the full name here to make that most useful for users, which is why that field's in there twice. It won't affect what's in +2. This is separate and only for what's available in open data. So you can put in that information in there. You put in that full address, and if you put the postcode in, then what it lets you do is further down here, you can click on this map and actually reposition the pin. We showed you the pin earlier. That's how you set the pin. And then that sets it so people can display maps on their websites that point to exactly where your center is. And you can also say, do they accept cash or card at the bottom there. So that should all be fairly straightforward. We would recommend, as with all of these things, that if you can upload an image, that you do of your venue, so people get an idea of what it is that they're going to see when they get there. Not quite as big as this, but something that's clear. And fill out as many of the fields as possible. And if you click save in the top right, You just need to remember to click save every time you change things. If you ever make a mistake, you click X, that just cancels any changes you've made in that box. If you click save, that saves those changes. And if I click save here, you'll see that percentage increases the number of fields I've filled out. You really want to aim for 100% coverage if you can on all the fields, just to make sure that you've got as much content in there as possible. Hopefully that's clear how you do that. So that's places. And now I'm going to just skip through to the next section, which is activities. So that's going to be just doing that alone in time for the Change for Life campaign, which is happening at the beginning next month. So not that many days away. If you just go into the sites and update all of these sites, that will be enough to get your data featured in Change for Life. It would obviously be better if you put more description in there, which I'll talk about now in terms of the individual activities. But if you put the sites information in and the organization information in only, which shouldn't take you more than a few minutes, hopefully, to do the basics, that will be enough that Change for Life, with their massive campaign that's in 97% of state-funded primary schools, that's launching next month, will be able to use your information. So really just encourage you, if you're watching this and you've got OWS, or if you want to get OWS quickly installed, to do that, just log in here, put your organization information in, put your place information in, and then you'll have everything you need for Change for Life, and you'll be good to go.
Just to add to that, Nick, it's worth just managing expectations here, in that in order to be in Change for Life, once a feed has been opened up, they do need to check it to make sure that they're happy with all the information before it goes live. So there is a little bit of a lead time between opening up your data and it going live in Change for Life. And of course, in terms of if you've already opened up your data, it might just be a case you want to improve the quality. If you haven't yet gone through the installation with Gladstone, you obviously need to give Gladstone a fair amount of time to go through the process of opening up that feed for you as well. So do bear in mind, it's not a case of deciding to open your data today and it will be open tomorrow. There is a little bit of work that needs to be done behind the scenes before that will start featuring in campaigns such as Change for Life.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so thanks, Tara. So just to speed through the rest of this then, to give you a sense of what's happening, the really important thing to know about the event series is what event series actually is. Event series is a template that you can use to apply to a number of activities that are in +2. So this is the question that was asked earlier. Can we do this by template? Yes, you absolutely can. That's what event series are. Create one template and then you associate it to all those activities that are the same in +2. So to give you an example of this, I've already created aqua aerobics. Just by filling in the label at the top there. We'll talk about why you have a consumer-facing and internal label in just a second. And then you can put in the information you want to put in here. Again, on the left, you can see there's little just tips about what you might want to include in those fields. Minimum age, again, if the maximum age is not included, then it's just assumed that there is no maximum. Same with minimum, except if there's no age in minimum, it's assumed to be 18 as the minimum. As it says in this little box, if you set it to 0, that's all ages. So 0 minimum age, no maximum age, that's all ages. But again, that's written in the little box. Recommend that you use imagery if you can to make the session really compelling. Again, with real people if possible. We've said that a few times. Really makes a difference to people attending that activity. If you've got any videos, you can paste a YouTube link in here. Whether it's beginner or intermediate. One really important thing to do for every activity, if you can, is to make sure that you reference the activity list. So the activity list, let me just remove this to show you. The activity list is a standard list of all activities that OpenActive recognizes. If you click this button, you can actually contribute to add more to this list if there's something missing. It's quite comprehensive. There's quite a few different things in here. And so it's really important that you just start typing in the name of the thing that you're, the activity that you're describing. And if you see it here, aqua aerobics, you can click on that and it pulls through aqua aerobics, and it doesn't have a definition. You can contribute one if you want, but at least linking it to aqua aerobics is then making it searchable by other people. You've also got information about whether it's coached or not in real life, if it's a virtual activity, if it's virtually coached. Some information about accessibility support is in here as well. So you can see that. Just go through and add all that information. do make sure that you put the activity reference in there. And the reason that we've got this internal label is sometimes you want to have two identically named activities which are actually slightly different in description. And I'll give you an example of why that is. If you've got an accessible version of the same thing, you might not want to advertise that with the word accessible externally, because that might just exclude people that think it's not relevant for them, when actually what it means is the instructors are trained to be able to deal with accessibility. So what you might do in this case is you might tick the boxes for accessibility, for example, physical impairment or wheelchair accessible. You might tick those boxes, just put an accessible in brackets in the internal label up here so that you can know that that's the one that is accessible and has those tick boxes ticked. But the consumer facing name is the same. And that way, Parasport and other similar activity finders can pull through the data that's relevant for those with accessibility needs and filter on it and display it in the right way without excluding the rest of your audience. Hopefully that makes sense. So internal label is only something you can see in the admin panel. The consumer-facing name, is, as it suggests, is what people will see on those various websites. So the final thing to show you is that there are organizations such as Les Mills, potentially, we're talking to at the moment, who are keen, not quite quick enough to get their stuff up in time for this call, but have let me show you a demo. If you're using Les Mills activities or something like this, they might give you what's called a program that you can just load in just to associate it with their particular activity. So if that happens, all you need to do is go to the website where you find this program, and there'll be a link for that program. In this case, it just looks like code. All you need to do is copy the URL of that program, the code, from their website, and you can just paste it in to, I'll show you where, to the box that's at the bottom of one of these activities. So if I add a new one, just to give you an example, you can see the program ID here. They'll give you a program ID. You just literally paste that URL in here, press lookup, and it pulls through all of the information about the program so that you can link it to Les Mills, all their information. And that allows people to find that even easier if that's the specific type of activity they're looking for, pull their logo and branding through and everything like that. And so, say that again, you just need to go to wherever it is that you've been given as part of your package of content for the programs that are being run. And if they give you a program ID, you can just get that link and copy the link from the top of the page there and paste it in that little box that says program ID. When you paste it in and click lookup, that's where it pulls through the information. So program ID, paste it in, click lookup, pulls through all the information. Hopefully that's clear enough. And this will be on video afterwards if you want to watch that back in slow motion, as we are a bit pressed for time. So that shows you how to put all of the event series information in here. Question now is, how do you associate them to your actual activities that are in +2? That's what event series mapping is for on the left. So if you in event series mapping, you can find everything that might be, let's see, a certain name, body balance, body combat, for example, and you can tick these, the ones that are relevant, and you can associate them with, for example, body pump. There we go, and select that, and then they're associated, and that's what you need to do. The search here is pretty good, so you can type in part words, you can type in full words. If I'd have typed in body pump as 2 words, I would have just got body pump. If you've got hundreds of these sessions and you type in body pump and you get 100 back, you can click on this button at the top to select all. You can then associate selected all at once, and you can click on body pump there and associate them all together at once. So that helps you go through all the activities just by searching for different combinations of words that you might have used in +2 and pull through and then associate them with event series. So every time you add a new activity in +2, you'll need to come in here and associate that with the relevant event series. The way you can easily filter on these to look for the ones that haven't yet been associated is just at the top right here. There's a little filter that you can choose, unassociated activities only. And if I apply filters to clear the filters here, you'll see this is all the things that are yet to be associated. To give you one more example, if I type in spin here, I'll get all my spin classes. So I'll then select all. I might want to discount the extreme ones because it's probably a different type of class, spin extreme, but keep the spinning ones. And then if I click select associated and I had a spinning option in here, I could then click to select and they would all be associated with spinning. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's the mapping. So event series are the templates. Event series mapping maps those through to the activities that are in +2. And the final thing to look at is just quickly a facility use. So every activity you've got in +2 that's available as a bookable with slots, for example, a squash court or a badminton court, will come through under the facility uses here. There's no templates here because generally speaking, they're already quite unique. So if you go through in each one of these, you can add the same kind of information. So badminton here, you can add a description, attendee instructions about whether you have rackets to hire or not, for example, or whether they need to bring them with them. You need to make sure you associate that activity list reference, choose badminton or outdoor badminton if it's an outdoor court, pulls through that information. If it's wheelchair accessible, there's a type of court you can put in there as well. If it's depending on what kind of court it is and whether it's indoor or outdoor, you can put in again there and accessibility information. As we were saying before, including images if you can to make it really clear what the offer is a really good thing to do. So we do recommend that you include images in all of your different parts of the system. And videos as well. If you have a video tour or anything like that, do include those. So that's that. As we said, if you click save every time, when you save, that information will be available within the feeds. It can take some time to get populated through onto those various finders, sometimes up to an hour to be updated on Change for Life and other places. But if you spot any mistakes in anywhere that you've got your data featured, or you spot any mistakes in here, just updating that information in here will go straight onto Change for Life. And then, yeah, and that will mean it's all live and available. It must be said that the availability, that's the number of spaces remaining, is actually always live. So that will be live within 30 seconds or so in all those places. So if anything's sold out, it will disappear from all of those websites. It's an accelerated session, isn't it? A few.
We have got 1 minute left. We will continue and answer all of the questions, but if anyone needs to go, this session is recorded, so you'll be able to watch back the end if you do need to dash off.
So Lynn, are you gonna, so the next bit to talk about is how you can talk to your, the people that are using data, such as Change for Life.
Sure, no problem. Could you bring up the screen that they can access, or do you want me to I'll talk about it first and then you can share it. So there are, on the slide that Nick's popped up, you can see on the left-hand side, you've got the data users. So that's the Change for Life and the others that are going to be using it. You and they can communicate using something called GitHub. And Nick will show you, I think, in a moment where that is. The really important thing to understand is that is between you and the data user, as opposed to Gladstone. It's something that's provided, but the comms are between the two of you. If they are asking you some questions about something, you can answer it there. If there is something that they're having a problem with that is more related to the product, then you would then log that with our support team through Zendesk as you would ordinarily. So the really key thing is that there's two bits. We aren't monitoring the GitHub side. Obviously, we do monitor the Zendesk side. So any product issues, report through as you would ordinarily. Nick, do you want to just show the GitHub part? Are you able to do that?
Absolutely, will do, Lynn. So just to give you the actual example of that, when you get an OWS site provisioned, what you'll see is this site, which you get, actually has a discussion button on it. That will be set up for you with a relevant issues board in GitHub. This is GitHub here, as Lynn was describing. This is an example from Fusion, which has been live for a while. So they've had a few issues on here raised that they're dealing with. And so these issues are usually about your data, usually about what you've typed in into the data manager. And so if you've put the address in the wrong place, or you've put the latitude and longitude in wrong, or something like that, or maybe you've just forgotten to untick web bookable on something that's no longer available or something. A lot of these data users are quite keen on detail, so they might well pick up on some things that you've missed. And it's really great because it helps you to improve your data quality, and they'll be keen to give you feedback on that. As Lynn mentioned, that's not something that's a Gladstone thing to fix. That's just something you need to know to make those changes in Data Manager and then respond on GitHub yourself to that issue. So as an example of an issue here, someone has pointed out to Fusion that they've actually forgotten to include some lines of their address in this particular site. And you can see this person is saying it's empty here. You've got no region. Probably should say London. It's empty. And so that's an example where Fusion just needs to pop in and change that. You know, that they're in the process of doing that, just because there's an upgrade happening at the moment. They haven't yet done that, but that's the change they need to make. And so what you can do is you can log into GitHub, and you can then, when you've made the change, you can go to the bottom and you can actually respond at the bottom here, which I'll show you shortly, to that issue, so that people can and close the issue, so everyone's aware that that's been fixed. So what I'll just do quickly is show you how to create a GitHub account so that you can do that. It's a very simple process. And what you need to do is go to github.com. And just to be clear, anyone can see these issues. They're publicly available. You can also see the lists of all the people who have got their data open as well. It's publicly available. So because it's open data, all the issues are also open. And so people can see those, and other people might respond to issues on your behalf, actually. If you want to respond and participate in the conversation on your own issues board, that's when you need to create a GitHub account. The actual board exists, and the people will start interacting on their own. It's really just for you to be able to participate in that conversation that you need this account. So as you can see here, in github.com, you just go in and you add, you just select a username, email address, and password. And so I'm going to do that now, just to give you an example. So username, I'll just use my name, oops, and an email address and a password here. And if I click sign up, that's really as simple as it is. That's to create your account. There is one extra step, which is a bit befuddling. You've got to make this horse the right way up. And when you've done that, then you've got the account. That's the only slight complexity. Always choose the free option. This doesn't cost you any money. Don't tick anything else. You don't need to get updates or set up an organization. And you can skip the step of all these other tick boxes. So that's it. You get the account. It's as simple as that. And what that means is when you've got that account, you can then sign in, and you can respond to all of those issues that we've shown you there. So that's how you create a GitHub account. I'm just going to move this back over here. So hopefully that's pretty clear in the time that we had there. Do you have any questions about anything that we've gone through that's not been clear, or anything you'd like a further demo on?
So just a reminder that anyone who wants to ask any questions, I appreciate we've gone over time, but we will answer all of the questions. It's slido.com, slido.com. And if you type in open active, all one word, you'll be able to ask new questions. So we've got a couple of questions in here now. One from Tom. How can non-360 users get to the open active infrastructure /admin?
So it's not a part of 360. OWS is a separate piece of software that we install. I saw this come up when we were doing the demo. I know that the sales environment that we were showing does, I think, Sales 360. That's just the name of our demonstration environment. So you don't need 360 to be able to use it.
And Steve has asked, is +2 version 10.07 release 054 okay? And I know you've replied, Lynn, to say
yeah, anything over 10.7 is fine.
Perfect. Stavrula has asked, could you repeat what you said about getting into campaigns such as Change for Life? I think what you're referring to, and please add another question if I'm mistaken, I mentioned earlier the lead time into getting into a campaign like Change for Life. So if you have already had the Gladstone installation, then your data will already be in the stage of Public Health England, Change for Life, checking that data before any kids-related activities can go into that. You may want to, increase the quality of your data now that you've seen how to do that. If you haven't had the installation yet for Open Active, it is not a case of if you say today you want to do this, it will be live on Change for Life tomorrow. There is a little bit of work that Gladstone need to do in order to open up your feed, and also that Change for Life need to do in order to check that that data is okay before they're happy for it to go onto their activity finder, because obviously that then goes out to end users and they need to have good quality control of that data. So hopefully that answers Stavrula's question there. Tom has a good question. Can we see who is currently using our data that we are sharing? Nick, can you answer that question?
Yes, so you won't get any direct indication as to who's using your data because they don't necessarily have to let you know about that. That's what that GitHub issues board is for, really. You will know about that because we'll be communicating with everybody as Open Active about people that are using open data generally. So we'd recommend that you join the Open Active mailing list, go to the Open Active website, and if you get on that mailing list and the newsletter, then you'll see new campaigns coming through that newsletter, and you'll be aware of what campaigns are using open data more generally there. It's actually the great thing about open data that you don't necessarily know where that information is going. When it comes to booking, you will know very clearly who it is, and that's what the second phase is all about.
Thanks. Question for Lynn. Steve asks, is there a yearly fee?
No, there's a one-off fee for the implementation, and thereafter it is just ongoing. It's there's no ongoing annual cost.
And Stavrula asks, can we monitor how many clicks we have got through Open Active?
Well, there is actually one thing you can do to do that. So I know I said you don't know how many people are using it, but you can look at clicks. Let me just show you quickly how. I mentioned that the place where people will click on when they see your data, you set that in places. So let me just show you an example of this. The South Bank Centre here, they've set this website URL here. And what you can do is if you understand how to use Google Analytics on your own website, there's something called a UTM source, which is a way of tracking click-throughs. So what you can do is you can actually set those UTM sources and that kind of information, which you can look at Google Analytics and figure out how to do that, or anyone in your marketing team may already know that if you're sending newsletters. And it looks something like this. So you would set a UTM source at the end of maybe Open Active, and then you would put that kind of information in. And what that does then is it shows in Google Analytics any of those clicks that come through Open Active. And you do that just by changing the website URL. And as I mentioned, because it's on a site-by-site basis, you can't actually set the URL on a session-by-session basis, and it doesn't currently link through to Connect because, as you said, it doesn't connect to Join at Home or anything like that. So this is really the best way of doing it, making sure when they click through to find out about your website, about that site that they're on, that they can that you can measure that in analytics.
In terms of future tracking of who is coming through from different activity finds and things, we will be working on booking over the next few months, and once that is at a more established stage, I'm sure we'll be having more discussions around this, but with booking you will then obviously be able to track in much more detail who is coming through to book onto your activities if they're coming through external sites. Yeah. Tom asks, will GitHub accounts be linked to specific data providers? Can a GitHub user claim a section re their own data platform?
That's a really good point. So one thing I didn't mention is when you finish creating your GitHub account, as we did do a minute ago, what you can do is you can actually send that in to Gladstone support. I forgot to mention that. So as you rightly say, you can't claim Fusion Lifestyle, for example. It has to be assigned to you. And so when you've created that account that we talked through earlier, the next step for you to do is just to email Gladstone support or contact Gladstone support with that particular ID that you've set up. And what they'll do is then associate that to the relevant issues board here, so that you'll be able to close issues on your own board. People can't close issues or delete issues unless they are owners of the board, which you will become if you give that information to Gladstone.
Great. Stavroula asks, do you need to compare the Hub account with the Leisure Centre company?
What does that mean? Compare the Hub account with the Leisure Centre company?
I think that might be the same question that Tom has asked in terms of linking them, perhaps. Stavroula, not entirely sure of that question. If it was the same as Tom's, then that's fine. If it was slightly different, if you wouldn't mind elaborating further, please. No, she says yes, we did answer that. Perfect. Question from Mark. Can we see a directory listing of sites and apps that display our open active data? I think that has been answered already.
Yeah, is there a directory listing of all those sites and apps? No, there currently isn't. That's a good question, actually, whether we're going to have that on the Open Active website in the future. As I mentioned, the newsletter is the best place to find out the latest information about those sites and apps at the moment.
Great. Stuart asks, we only have Connect at one of our sites, but all of our sites use Mobile Pro and have classes as web bookable enabled. Will the Open Active data feed pull the classes data from the Mobile Pro sites?
Yes, they will, because it's not connected to Connect or Mobile Pro. It's the web bookable part that makes them web bookable.
Tom had a follow-up question. What about changing ownership of the GitHub board and associating more users to the same board?
Yeah, Gladstone have ultimate control of the board. So if you just contact Gladstone support, you can get as many users added to that board as you'd like. And also you can get them removed. If someone leaves your organization, for example, I guess that's the common case, and had access before, Gladstone can very easily remove their previous access and add in new access to someone else if that's what you need to happen.
And one last question we have from Martin. Have you any operators who can already demonstrate levels of bookings through Open Active from specific data users? And I think the answer to that is not yet. Change for Life, for example, their activity finder is still in beta. They're launching it officially, I believe, on the 7th of July, and will be doing a big marketing campaign, a media campaign following that. So that activity finder is not being used as much as it will be in the next few weeks. So that's why you won't necessarily see a big spike in that data until that has happened. And the same with other data users. There are a number of big national data users that will be coming up soon. Parasport, for example, that is very new. They've only just started using that. Sport England are talking about using open data for This Girl Can, but that is something that's probably going to be happening in September. And there are another number of other examples, but we're still at early stages. This functionality is fairly new for Gladstone customers, so we hope to see that very soon, but it's too new to be able to demonstrate that just yet. We've had one more follow-up question from Tom. Can different roles / access levels be set up on a GitHub board?
All the advanced questions, Tom. Yes, absolutely. You can set up roles and access levels. The two main roles that you probably want are the one that allows you to just access the just close questions and then read only. But to be honest, you probably don't need. I mean, the read only is just the default. Anyone can get that. So there are multiple levels, but I think there's probably no real advantage in getting someone added as a read only user. You might as well just have them added with the ability to close and respond to issues, which is the default. So although there are multiple levels available in GitHub, if you look in there, and if you become an admin of your own board, you'll be able to set other people up and add them as well as users. But the default permission that Gladstone will give you, unless you want to be given that more advanced permission, will just be that close and respond permission, which would probably be enough for most use cases.
Great. And we've got one question from John. What is the lead time if we want OWS? Lynn, you answer that?
John, you're stealing my my closing. That was part of it. So for the way that we are delivering. So for hosted customers, the installation is a lot shorter. We are gathering orders through, we've done a couple of days already, but basically any hosted customers will gather the orders together and we'll do one day and we'll just blast through them all. For those customers that are on premise, it's a slightly longer installation. And we need to book service time to do it. It's not a huge installation, so it won't fall into our normal standard technical lead times. And because it's shorter, we can kind of slot it in where we've got a gap. So it's a really difficult one to answer. How long is it? Ask me on a particular date and I can tell you on that date how long it's going to take us. It might be 3 days, it might be a week, it might be a little bit longer.
Thanks, Tim. Just had one more question come through from Tom. Is there any downtime for enabling OWS on hosted?
No, none at all.
Perfect.
That applies to hosted and on-premise. We can do it while you're up and running still. You won't even know we're there.
Great. And that is all of the questions. If anyone does have any follow-up questions that occurs to them, they can speak to Lynn if it's related.
Okay.
And apologies for overrunning, but thank you for everyone who has stuck with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for joining today. Thank you for Lynn for organising this.
You're very welcome. I was about to say thank you. This is kind of mutual appreciation. Thank you, Nick and Tara, for fielding questions and demonstrating. I think it was really useful. I know that there is one person from Gladstone on, so thank you. From us as well. For those customers that have got it already, great, enjoy your free marketing. If anybody hasn't got it and they are interested, drop me an email and I will arrange a installation quote for you.